You're listening to a Whales or Whales production. You're also listening to Whales. Visit whalesorwhales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
Greetings.
Hello, welcome to Hearthaholics, the Hearthstone podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and making terrible puns. This is episode 24. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining me today is Andres. Hello, Andres.
Hey, Bryan. Good to be here.
Yes, it is very good to have you here. It is also good to have Billy. Hey, Billy.
Hello, Bryan. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, though I am freaked out because there are actually 4 of us here today, which is very unusual. Noxious has also joined us from the Hearthstone community. Hey, Noxious, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. A little tired after the whole casting day that I had with Starladder, but I'll be fine for the duration of the podcast, at least.
That's the hope. Little do you know, we do 5-hour episodes.
Yeah. You'll lose me halfway through. I don't know. I'll probably just die.
I'll just fall asleep.
Pretty much. Your death certificate is going to read really strangely. But yeah, you alluded to tournament casting. I imagine like anyone listening to this podcast would know who you are because you do a lot around Hearthstone, but why don't you go ahead and like introduce yourself in terms of what you do in the Hearthstone scene?
For the most part, I do, YouTube content. I do a lot of casting recently. I don't play in tournaments. I'm not a good tournament player. I don't have the mentality to do, any kind of competitive play really. I'm not really interested in it outside of as a viewer. And it's kind of nice that I end up casting a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So what would you say you are interested in doing with your time in Hearthstone, and if it's not competitive play? Like, what about the game draws you to it?
I think it's the possible complexity of it. I mean, right now Hearthstone is still I want to say simple game because it's got very limited amount of variables for you to interact with due to the way the game works, but the potential of the game is massive, and every single time new cards are released I always get kind of drawn back into deck building mode, and I still try out new stuff once in a while. There's always something new to try out, and that kind of brings me back in. I guess fun decks that have quirky interactions is pretty much my thing.
Your specialty.
Yeah.
Right. Did you play much Magic or other card games before Hearthstone? Because I know they got way more complex.
Yeah, I played a lot of Magic growing up. It's
Oh, nice.
It's kind of a curse at the same time because looking at Hearthstone, I feel like a lot of it was stripped out of Magic, but I also hated so many things about Magic that I'm kind of happy that Hearthstone doesn't have those. It's kind of, you have to make a compromise somewhere to get everything.
Yeah. I had a similar history where I'm like, I lament some of the lost complexity of Magic, but it's fun to be able to start with the trading card game from the very ground up. Instead of, droning it once it's, so complex, it's kind of hard to possibly backpedal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree with the fact that Hearthstone is very similar to Magic in a lot of senses. Although, I think it has to be, right? Because Magic was kind of like the father of all these card games.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first big one, I think, that really kicked off and stayed around. Yeah. That's the big thing. Like, you have so many games that just die off.
Yeah. And the mechanics were just so engaging, and you just had so many possibilities to build really cool decks that did all these different things that, I don't know, it's hard to ignore them and build a game that ignores all that stuff that they left as a legacy, right?
And it's kind of funny to see Magic try to enter the digital market and then realize
and completely failing.
So it's really hard to compete with Hearthstone, which was built from the ground up to be a digital card game. You don't realize how many, subtle differences there are to make it playable in a digital format in ways that Magic isn't. So,
yeah.
Pretty interesting.
I wanted to ask you, Noxious, what brings you into like streaming and video games? Was it your background with Magic? Did you play a lot of video games when you were younger? What made you get into this sort of thing?
I mean, video games kind of just growing up, I guess, accidentally you stumble upon one video game and then you end up playing a lot of them. I was also a really introverted person, so video games were basically my entire childhood. Like, I didn't have many friends growing up, as weird as that might sound, because I'm just not a very social person. You couldn't tell.
No, I get that.
You couldn't tell
because
the
the way you stream,
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell, but I'm still socially awkward, less so now than I used to be. I've learned a little to keep in check the stupid comments that just pass through my head and I just have to blurt out. But it is still something I have to work on. And video games really gave me that outlet where I can just do cool stuff and experiment with game mechanics. Because the complexity of games is what always appealed to me. And streaming was just an accident. Somebody told me, hey, you make YouTube videos for Hearthstone. Why don't you try to set up a Twitch channel? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try that. And I didn't try to actually become popular. It just, like, I didn't even want to initially. I was like, yeah, let's just play a few games here and there. But it blew up.
Right. Just haven't, yeah. I mean, most people who become known and stuff like that don't really start because they want to become known, right? They just do it because they like it, and
I hope so.
People follow, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Well, except us, all we care about is cold hard cash, Andres.
That's right. If we're not making a profit, we're gonna cancel this podcast.
Exactly. So you mentioned your YouTube channel. Like, what kind of videos did you start out making for Hearthstone?
Oh man! All right, so back in Alpha, God, this goes so far back. I actually reviewed,
I remember seeing these though.
I actually went back and looked at some of the older content. Basically, in Alpha, the game wasn't even out. It was announced at PAX East, and the exact day that it was announced at PAX East, what I did was I got together with a few friends on the Hearthstone official forums that we met there, and I just basically cropped out the images that were shown in the trailer to see what the cards did. And from the mechanics that were explained, we inferred how the game would play. And all I did is I did card reviews of basically pre-release cards. I don't even know. It wasn't even closed beta. Like closed beta was
you were
late.
You were making up the cards and doing reviews for the made-up cards.
Not quite made up. They were like you could
see them in the trailer.
Little images of them.
We just like stripped the trailer out of content.
I see. Wow, that's some detective work right there.
Yeah, like we did a lot of work on that front. And the interesting thing is, you probably know about all the card simulators like Magic Workstation or Cockatrice.
Yeah.
We built there was a Hearthstone client, quote unquote, built for Cockatrice, a plugin, I guess. And we played Hearthstone on that for like 4 months before the game was even in closed beta, and we got awesome. Blizzard to nerf so much stupid shit. You wouldn't even believe this crap we actually played.
That's kind of amazing. That's super interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Like, did you get any of the rules like just wrong in that? Like,
we had some rules wrong, especially when it came to play and summon. It wasn't obvious at first. You wouldn't know what it made, like what it did, until you asked for clarification. A card like Repentance and Jiraxis, there's a few interactions that actually we needed explanations from Blizzard. Secrets as well, right. The way they work. Like, Eye for an Eye was a really big deal, because back then Molten Giants were 10/10s, so Paladins would just like,
oh my god,
Eye for an Eye and smash their own face into it, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I die. So there was a lot of stuff that was really clunky. And Druids, man, I never want to see those guys again. We actually banned them in the internal tournaments. They were stupid.
Really?
Yeah, they were retarded.
They're that bad?
Yeah.
What was so bad about Druid that early on?
Oh man, everything was wrong. So Wrath could hit face for 3. Starfall could hit face for 5. Bite was 3 mana, gain 6 attack. Claw was 1 mana, gain 3 attack. Savagery was 2 mana, take your attack and deal it to all enemy minions.
So it's Blade Flurry.
Yeah, you deal to all enemy minions and then you attack face. Like, you go Bite for 3 and Savagery for 2. You deal 6 to their entire board and hit them in the face for 6. It's like, what's even going on in your head, Blizzard? I don't know. It was so bad.
Wouldn't you prefer to live in a world where Bite did 6 damage for 3 mana rather than a world that Savage Roar exists?
I don't know. That's a scary world.
Here's the thing you have to keep in mind. Back then, like, Force of Nature was 5, so it was just like another thing on top of it. Yeah, it was another thing on top of the rest. So
yeah, some tough times back there. Like, we have it good right now.
Yeah, you have no idea. And initially, people were like, nerf Druids because this is getting ridiculous. But the biggest offender was always the Force of Nature Savage Roar combo, which we pointed out repeatedly. And instead of nerfing that, Blizzard just decided to nerf the spells that had too much versatility. And as a result, I guess we're stuck with no win condition in Druid. Aside from that, there's like nothing else.
Yeah, it seems a little odd that you see a Druid deck for a little bit that doesn't have that combo, and then everyone puts the combo in. It's like, I'm sorry, even in Beast Druid, this has to be the win condition.
It's just too good not to include it. At least one copy of it.
Exactly. It's a bit odd that way.
But that's really cool. That's awesome insight on your life and how you got into this scene over here.
Yep.
You're definitely a Hearthstone veteran.
People, it just kind of seemed to happen. Like this game kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, hey, let's play this game.
Yeah,
And turns out people like this game a lot, which is pretty neat. All right, so let's move on to our main topics for the show. As our listeners know, but to introduce anyone new there, each episode, each of the three main hosts, myself, Andres, and Billy, each bring a topic to discuss. Billy this week actually has a special topic he put together just for Noxious. So Billy, why don't you go ahead and start things off here?
All right. So I have slightly less of these lightning round questions than I thought I was. So the idea of this is that they're super simple questions that normally wouldn't justify a topic. But I'm gonna lightning quick spam them at you, Noxious. All right.
Go.
All right. So they're on the level of like, what's your favorite color, but not actually a color. All right. Here we go. So far, what has been your favorite tavern brawl?
The one with bananas.
Banana. That's a cool term.
Yeah, I had an
like
insane shaman deck that actually nobody figured out because everybody was too busy playing cancerous like mage, and I literally lost 0 games with that deck.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is your favorite hero class?
Priest by a long shot. Not even close.
Of course.
What is your favorite golden animation in the game?
That's a tricky one. I feel like Convert is really cool, but like nobody really pays attention to it. No, like there's nothing special about it. Just when I look at it, I think it looks good, and Confuse as well is like pretty cool looking. But
the colors of Confuse are awesome. I really like that.
Yeah, they're really awesome when you look at them golden. It's just they I guess pop out even more.
Yeah.
So it turns out when I try to search convert gold to find the golden animation, it's just telling me how to convert real money to gold. So I don't.
Yeah, it's going to tell you all sorts of things about Illuminati and conspiracy theories and stuff.
Exactly.
I don't know if you're going to be Googling that, Brian. Yeah. We might not see you for the next week or something.
You're dead. That's it, rip. The government's coming for your guns, man. Run away. There we go.
My guns and my Hearthstone. Yeah.
What is your favorite card in the entirety of the game?
Oh man, that's a rough one.
I think he has to say acidic swamp ooze, right?
Right? I would have been disappointed if the answer was not acidic swamp ooze.
I kind of have, like, initially, by the way, I didn't even know what the art was. Like, I just took the art because it looked cool. And then later on, I realized, hey, this card is actually okay. Like, I never even knew the card was before. We knew the art before the card. So it was pretty nice. But, like, my favorite card overall is actually a really rough one. Like, fun-wise, I mean, there's so many aspects, right, that you can just look at it from.
How about we do, like, some categories? You can do a fun one, and you can do a competitive one.
Yeah, fun one, I'd say Elite Torn Chieftain's probably, like, the best.
Do you have the golden one?
Yeah, I'm a lucky bastard that way.
Nice.
Yeah, I got given gifts when I went to BlizzCon 2013. And for competitive play, I'd say Tinker's Sharpsword Oil. Because when it actually was announced, I was hyping the hell out of this card, and everybody was telling me just how crappy it was. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, this is aggro control rogue. This is the deck that's going to be built. And everybody was laughing at me because it was 4 mana, and I'm like, okay. And now I feel vindicated. Because in TGT, they still have nothing else.
It holds a special place in your heart. Yeah, that's right. Oil is all they have for now.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll see Ogre Rogue.
Like, Poison Blade, everyone, come on,
oil that up. You're like, nope, no thanks. I'll pass, thank you.
My final question.
Ooh.
Out of all the cards, because you're a deck builder, and that's one of my favorite things about you, the unique things that you try to find within the game. In your opinion, what is the most underrated card right now?
Clockwork Knight. Really? That is really far-fetched and it looks ridiculous, but I feel like mech decks will need a 5-drop one day that's not junk bot. Like, no offense to this poor guy, but like, a 5/5 for 5 is considerably big. It falls into the trap of having the same problem as, say, upgraded repair bot, and what makes it even clunkier is that the only class that can double dip in the mech goodness of a 5-drop is actually Priest, so they're kind of stuck with Repair Bot and the Clockwork Knight. So they're kind of the only class that can really justify running a mech deck for a turn 5 tempo mech play, and that's why it's not working out so well. But if there were another 5-drop mech that could actually add itself to the roster, I think Clockwork Knight would suddenly be a lot better. And it lets your Shredders trade into Belchers, kill Emperor Thorsons. It's also really tough to remove. I mean, it's a pretty solid card overall.
That's an interesting point. I saw a couple of people were experimenting with it in the mech mage, just adding like a one-off, and it just seems like you can use the body a lot, and the +1/+1 just helps you since you are trying to put mechs on the board every turn anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how I feel about it. It's got that lack of a drawback that Fel Reaver just so often brings. It doesn't get BGH. It trades into so many things. It's just I love the card. I really do.
And you're right, it does trade it with Belchers and Tharasan favorably, which is kind of like the kind of type of minion you want to be playing in this turns anyway.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, when your Shredder can be made a 5/4 and kill a Belcher for free, you're like, oh, that sounds balanced.
That's almost like Druid.
Yeah. Oh god, no. Oh man, see, this is it. Meg Druid with that guy. There's actually a chance it's actually viable. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I need to try that out.
So I have a follow-up question for that, since that was apparently Bill's last question. What do you think is the most overrated card right now?
Varian Rin.
Ooh.
Varian Rin.
Ooh,
that's what I'm hearing.
I like that
from
choice.
everyone.
I think this card is actually garbage. And I don't even know why people put it in the deck. Like, I have so many people telling me I'm wrong about this. But ever since I saw the card, I'm like, 10 mana. Like, if this card doesn't say Battle Cry, win right now, like, it's almost... Like, the only time where I really liked it, I saw it played by Orange, I think, where he had literally 3 cards left in his deck. And he was guaranteed to get Grom, and he had a Death Bite equipped, ready to pop, and he played Varian to guarantee Grom. I'm like,
oh, cool.
That's good, but like, Grom could have also been in his hand at that stage, and it would have been okay.
That is true, instead of Varian.
Right, so you might as well play Kolaroko in that stage earlier in the game, and you probably would do almost as well.
It reminds me a little bit of the Ysera problem, where it's like, once you get to those late turns, it can be tough to find a turn where you can take that kind of tempo loss to drop Ysera and not react to what your opponent is doing. Yeah. But the difference is Ysera works in the long control matchups by giving you more cards. Varian burns through your cards. So in the kind of matchups you want a card like that, Varian is still bad.
Right.
Varian's a funny card to me. I tried to convince a friend of mine that, like, assuming that you just get the stats out of Varian, and let's say I pull 3 minions from my deck, and on average they're like 5/5 in stats.
Yeah, okay. Let's assume that. That's a really big assumption to pull.
Right. Let's just assume that. Let's just say that that's like going to happen when I play Varian. Would you even play a 10 mana like 17?
Well, it's spread over multiple bodies. So
I know. Dude, I understand that. But, like, even still, would you play that card?
Okay, so I'm going to rephrase this, okay? If Varian Rin was literally a 10 mana 50/50, would you play it? And I think your answer is always no. Like, it doesn't matter, like, how big you can... Like, Anima Golem could be probably a 30/30 and you wouldn't play it for the exact same reason you don't play Varian Rin. You know what I mean? Like, it's got that same problem of being too expensive for too low immediate impact. I mean, what if it gives you Justicar Trueheart out of Varian? I mean, sure, she was 3 cards away, but if that was a win condition in Control Mirrors where you're hoping to fatigue out the opponent, you're out of it.
That's the other thing I was going to say. Like, he's not only expensive, but he can also pose a big liability, especially with the cards that, like, normal Control Warrior wants to run, right? A bunch of Battle Cries and that sort of thing.
Here's what you need to do. You need to make like a super aggressive like charge warrior that just when you play Varian finally on turn 10.
I've actually made that, creatures. To be honest with you. It works better in that deck than in Control because eventually I run out.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like I run out of steam in Warrior. And that gives you that little bit of extra steam that you need. And if not, it gives you weapons that you can draw or an upgrade or something for the following turn. It's really like it's garbage, but it works better there than it works.
It's interesting garbage at least.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting answer. Yeah, I was really wondering about that. Right when
that like did something at the end of a turn, like Baron Geddon is an example of a card that sometimes is good with Varian, like maybe. But like
Ysera's amazing with Varian.
Yeah, but like they currently don't have enough minions in the deck that do similar effects to that. That it's just I don't know. It feels Varian doesn't do enough at 10. It's exactly what.
Yeah. I agree. When TGT hit, all these people were telling me to craft Varian immediately, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait on that one.
I didn't either.
Weren't you on board with the Ronin hype train there?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I pulled Ronin, so I was just
okay, that's right. I thought you. For some
I was
reason,
just self-justifying at that point.
For some reason, I had it in my head that you crafted Ronin.
No,
I crafted Ronin. I wanted to try him out.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't think Ronin's necessarily
I think
bad.
Ronin will actually be absolutely insane. Like, there will be one day where you can actually play him in a deck with Effigy, and you cut mirror entities and counter spells, or maybe you play like a counter spell and an Effigy with Ronin in a tempo mage. And you might be able to get away with it because people will play around mirror entity, and that's going to give you the mid game just because they play around it. Like, they're going to throw a crappy 2-drop on turn 4 because they don't want to give you a shredder, and then you just play your 5-drop with Effigy on the board, and you're pretty much going to race ahead. And if it ever comes down to it, you can always drop like Archmage or like Ronin late game with the Effigy to get yourself a crazy swing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to like synergize with Ronin in that mage deck with things like Effigy and then like Antonidas, all that stuff. But I feel like just the way the meta game works right now is just you don't have sometimes space to follow it up, especially because the tempo mage just seems to run a little more aggressive right now.
Totally, that does make sense. All right, Andres, let's move on now to your topic.
Cool, sounds good. So for my topic, I wanted to talk a little bit about the ATLC, which I know you were just a part of, and you casted pretty much the whole finals, and most of it. It's pretty much been one of the biggest tournaments this year, and a lot of people watched it. There were a lot of cool stuff. I'm thinking we can maybe touch a little bit on that and get your thoughts on the tournament.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I casted pretty much at least a little bit each week. The first few weeks, of course, I wasn't even on board. Rekful, I think, was casting, and then they asked me.
We all know how that went.
Yeah, I didn't even see that event, by the way. Like, a lot of people were telling me about the fiasco, but I actually like Rekful, so I'm like, I'm pretty forgiving because I know Rekful as a streamer, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Rekful does Rekful things. The entire competitive WoW crowd is all about being just silly and maybe inappropriate, probably inappropriate. So it didn't surprise me at all when he said what he did. So when I got asked to sub in, I was pretty happy. It was like a pretty big event. I didn't even expect to be contacted for it. The games were good all season long. The team format was crazy good, but I think if anything, we got a lot of statistical data just from that event alone as far as tournament play goes, because if you think about all the tournament play that's happening, when you see 1v1s and a best of 5 conquest, like, the problem with aggregating all the data is that you have to pick it up from so many events, whereas in this case you can kind of take the event as a standalone, I guess, good measure or good sample size.
Yeah, especially since it was like so prolonged, right? It was over time, so
it was
kind of nice sample size.
Long event. Andres, like, just for the basics of this event, do you recall like how long it was, how many teams there were, like what the general format of the event was? 7
weeks of best of 11s, where you had every team in a round robin basically fighting off against each other one. So each team, 8 teams, playing 7 matches each against each other team. Of course, they can't face off against themselves. So the entirety of the league was basically, I want to say pure skill, but of course it's a card game, so take it for what it's worth. And you saw some crazy outliers, of course, when it came to the decks that people brought, the way some classes performed and some others didn't. And I get the feeling Patron's win rate was largely under what it should have been. But
it was just luck, pretty much.
Well, not really. I think Patron's win rate largely comes from the fact that on ladder, you can just keep queuing nonstop and you'll get like 55% like against the entire field. Like the entire field, like a good Patron player can probably hit 60% against everything. Whereas you look at a tournament like ATLC, and Patron is warping the meta to an extent where you have people actually teching so hard against it that you end up with data that doesn't necessarily translate the power
I see
of
what
the
you
deck.
mean. It skews a lot.
Right. So the data is really significant in that you have a huge tournament, but the data is also irrelevant because of the fact that it's like a very contained metagame. And I feel like if you just go off of ATLC data, you would probably end up just making hunters unplayable because they are so powerful in that entire league.
Right, Bryan Kibler was pretty much almost undefeated with a hunter, right?
Right. Hunter is just broken as hell when you actually look at its win rates, but when you look at the class itself, it's less unfair than it's ever been. So
True, especially in the latter. Is
like,
hunters are not that common anymore.
I feel like the entire history of Hearthstone is just how do we have to nerf hunters next? Like,
yeah, like you didn't have to go through how do we have to nerf druid, so you only saw the hunter part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like over Unleash the Hounds. There's so many versions of that one card.
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes in Hearthstone was making the charge keyword. Like, I feel like that is actually a huge problem. Because they literally made a game where you can't assign blockers. Like in MTG, you can say, all right, you want to play like a goblin with haste? I've got this crappy 1/1 that I'll just jump into.
Oh, that's
true. Your opponent does have the say in that.
Yeah, and like in Hearthstone, it's like, you want to charge my face? I'm literally sitting there and let you punch at me, and I can't answer it at all. There's like no way at all.
You're right. Hearthstone's answer to that is, being able to target their minions with yours, which is something you can't do in Magic, but you don't have the chance to do that with charge win conditions.
Right, exactly.
So that's a really good point I hadn't considered before. And if you think about a lot of the decks that have been nerfed in OP, I think every single one has
ubiquitously, it's always around charge. It's the one mechanic that wrecks it all and just punishes and ruins like Hearthstone games. The game's about trading minions, and I feel like going into Hearthstone, I mean, I can't even blame them, because if you think about it, really, like, how can you make a card game without haste? Right? It's like it's so self-evident.
It just seems like if they didn't add charge, then people would be complaining of why there wasn't charge.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain without people experiencing it. And like, you have this rule set, and every card you print has to be modifying the rule set. Like, that's pretty much how you make cards. You have like, oh, you can't attack this turn, like every turn when you play a minion, and then when you make a cool card or a mechanic, it has to affect the basic rule set, where you basically, can attack this turn. It's kind of like, it's self-evident, but in this case, I think it was a bad idea.
Yeah, that you can't justify running enough taunt cards to counter that. Like, the taunt cards aren't good enough.
Right.
Like, there are a couple you can put in there, like Sludge Belcher, but you can't just be like, oh yeah, let's go, like, Sinjin Shieldmaster followed by Sludge Belcher followed by Lord of the Arena.
Like,
I mean, some decks do that, Ramp Druid,
but they still kind of suck, though. Like,
that's
the problem. They still
only work in certain meta games, like against aggressive decks or charge
what's way
decks.
better than that? The Druid that runs a charge combo finisher.
Oh man,
that's the Druid that wins.
Dude,
So
a world without charge in Hearthstone would be such a different game. Like,
it would be completely different.
It'd be so much slower as well, because no turn would be like.
Have you
instant.
played Magic, Billy?
I have.
Magic is very slow.
But I feel like I'd prefer that, but I might be in a niche.
Yeah.
No, I'd much rather Hearthstone be slower, and I think, like, we had a crazy good game earlier, casting Starladder, that involved Stancifka making a crazy play, and I was like, he didn't charge up his Frothings, just because he didn't have the War Song, but he still won with the Frothing. It's just, the level
he
of
just
play,
played him at the right time.
Yeah, like at the right time, and it couldn't get punished as much. Like, there was a 33% chance it got hit by boombots, but it was like a statistically good play. And I was like, if Patron had to actually go through the hassle of not charging everything, it would not be broken in the first place. And maybe you could play in rage decks with lower than average stats, but you don't get punished necessarily for playing them on curve, because then maybe you can enable them on your own turn when the opponent's not charging at your face. It's like, there's this crazy mix of variables that get affected by...
That's a very interesting discussion. I'm sure that they're thinking about this constantly with Patron, more than ever now.
Yeah,
just out of interest, do you think the charge problem would be solved if instead of all the cards that currently read charge, they read stealth instead? Because stealth is kind of like charge, but it can be...
that can be quite tricky too, though.
So here's the problem, I guess.
Just
so
here's
the problem with that. If you look at it that way, you'd basically have to bump up the attack level of most of the cards that have charge. Because like, I look at Jungle Panther as a 3-mana 4/2 with stealth, and on the same mana cost, you got Arcane Golem. Like, charge is 10 times more powerful than stealth. Like, 10 times.
Right.
It's not even close. So you'd literally have to buff the stats of those cards, where you make maybe, like, if you make Arcane Golem, then you have to make it like a 4/4 with stealth, with that drawback. And, like, I'd be okay with that. I don't care how you call him, like, Stealthy Golem or whatever. He's like a 3-mana 4/4 with stealth that gives a mana crystal. But at that point, is it ever worth running over Jungle Panther? The answer is no. So it's falling in the weird limbo where you'd probably have to just remove all those cards straight up and start from scratch.
I like the idea of them renaming every card of charge just stealthy card.
Yeah,
names,
like stealthy
Leroy
golem,
Jenkins,
stealthy Jenkins,
Stealthy Huffer.
But like, here's the thing: like, I wouldn't mind if they left some iconic cards that have charge with charge, as long as it's not a thing you see on like every other deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least we have like one or two decks that kind of like work with that, but are not like out of hand or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was going to say there's like no going back for Blizzard now, but on the last week of the show we talked about, eventually if the cards would cycle out or they'd replace cards and that sort of thing like Magic does, and that would give Blizzard the opportunity to start putting less emphasis on certain keywords like charge. So it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward and how they kind of address this kind of stuff, because that's actually a really good point. I think charge definitely has its issues, and it's the thing Blizzard has had to balance more than anything else in the game.
For sure.
So.
It's a really interesting discussion. I don't know if we had ever discussed charge in the show like this.
I don't think so. Not quite.
You can definitely tell that you've thought about this a lot.
You've probably lost to charge enough to be frustrated.
I've seen too many like games be like, the thing is, I've been around since alpha, of course, and the nerf. Yeah. Like initially, you probably remember Warsong Commander in beta, right?
Yeah, it was kind of useless.
No, it was actually retarded because it was like your minions have charge
thing, right?
Yeah, like your minions have charge, so you would go Warsong, Molten, attack for 20 because they were 10/10s, and then you useful Brewmaster or Faceless the Giant.
Oh, you're talking about the old one that gave everything charge.
Yeah, like it was ridiculous, and like they had to nerf it because obviously it was ridiculous, and then it kind of fell out of favor. Naria was playing some kind of Worgen, like Raging Worgen deck, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember he was actually playing it not too long ago in the ladder.
Yeah, but like it's worse than Patron. It just looks like Patron. Yeah. When you face it, you're like, oh, it's Patron, and then you
it's
just
a surprise factor, pretty much.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, and. That's what I hate, is that they nerfed Warsong, they changed Unleash like 25 times. Initially, it gave all your beasts charge. They realized that's a fucking retarded idea, so they just changed that around and made it so it gave you beasts that have charge, and then they realized, well, we can't do that either, because that's also pretty insane. So they bumped up the cost, and yeah, they're going in the right direction. They know the problems that they're running into.
Yeah. For sure. Well, cool. Awesome that we had that little discussion. Touching back on
I have one more quick thing about charge.
Go.
Sure.
What's that,
Go
Billy?
for it.
What if Ice Howl was not a unique effect? What if the unique effect was this charge minion can attack face? What if defaultly charge could only attack minions?
What if defaultly charge could only attack face? Would be better for me. I would actually rather that be the case.
Like it is right now.
Well, in a weird way, but like, imagine if Patron couldn't just punch your face in.
That's interesting.
Like, they couldn't just trade away everything. They would literally be forced to, be on the board and then do something. Because, like, if you're limiting charge, like, you could call it, I don't know, ruthless, aggressive, like, I don't care how you want to call it, the keyword, but charge looks fine. It can only go face. Like, there's a taunt, you're out of luck. You're not going through. Like, I don't care how much you try.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's a drawback. You want to go face, just better have some silences, because you're out of it.
That's interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I'd rather that be the case.
Cool.
That's a cool idea. I hadn't thought about how hard you could counter it with taunts.
Yeah, finally, like, it would be useful, Like, finally, taunt would actually taunt.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, Andres, like you're saying, on to the ATLC stuff.
Did
you watch any of that yourself, Andres?
I did. I watched it on and off. It was so prolonged that whenever I could watch matches. I watched a lot of the ending of it. I wanted to ask you maybe talk a little bit about the format of it, because you briefly said that you thought it was one of the best formats so far. And I have kind of a similar opinion. I enjoyed this format quite a bit, and I think there's room to keep doing tournaments like this one. What do you think?
Does someone want to run over the format for people who aren't familiar with it?
Sure. Basically, you have 3 players playing 6 decks. It's a conquest format, and basically, which means you can only win with one deck once. As a result, what this meant is you brought 6 decks that each had to get a win, and this meant you couldn't bring subpar decks to your lineup. You had to really have a well-rounded lineup that all of the decks could get a win. What it led to is, very often you'd have very similar lineups, people bringing power classes, which is cool, because it basically really shows you which classes are the best. And it looked a lot like ladder, because very often those decks, because of the randomness of what you would be facing, would be pitted eventually against a broad spectrum of decks that would usually be found on ladder. And I guess as a result, taking those deck lists, and you could translate them into ladder super nicely. I think just for viewers' sake, I think that on its own was good enough.
Could the entire team not use repeat classes? Like,
yeah, you couldn't get two druids on the same team. It was just impossible.
So that's cool, because in typical tournaments where people are out for themselves, you can only have 3 different classes. So you'd be seeing a lot more of the same classes than if people have to choose 6 of them. So that's kind of neat that you're able to get so many different classes seen. Were there any classes that just did not show up for the most part?
Yeah, before TGT, Priest was just you saw. Two of them lost. I think one player won with one. I think was Dog with Priest. Some random week he just brought it. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember he even made an article in the Tempo Storm saying that Priest was a little higher than he was. I remember that time.
Yeah,
he was doing good with it though.
Yeah, I mean, you've got what do you have now? You have Dragon Priest that came back at the end of ATLC. Dragon Priest was just out on every team, because it's pretty much the best deck in the game right now. I think a lot of people would agree on.
You think Dragon Priest is the best deck in the game?
It beats Patron, it beats Secret Paladin, it stops Hunters, it stops Druids. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to compete with it right now.
It does have a really strong board and really good curve.
Yeah. It's easy to tech too. You have a few flex spots that you can modify.
Yeah, it's a super, like you said, it's a flexible deck. It can deal with everything, and it can tech to pretty much everything. So in terms of just being a solid all-around deck, I think it's definitely up there for what I've been able to see. It was kind of funny with the ATLC. I didn't have a lot of time to watch it. I can very rarely actually catch Hearthstone tournaments, because, they're really long. I can't imagine how long it takes, or
especially this one.
energy it takes to cast them, let alone watch them. But something that I found fun about this is I actually had a lot of driving to do. So I'm I'm going to see if I can listen to a Hearthstone tournament without watching it and see if it makes any sense to me. So I just turned on the audio while driving, and it actually made sense. Most of it I was able to keep up with.
Especially a lot of the casting sometimes has a lot of constructive criticism, and a lot of, they talk about the plays, and there's a lot of theory that goes on during those talks. So I think it might be still worth listening to it.
It's a testament to the casting that I was able to just listen to you, Noxious, and your 2 co-hosts just tell me about what was going on, and I was basically able to keep up.
It's kind of rough. Sometimes when I think casting is actually a lot tougher than people give it credit for. I notice my own shortcomings when it comes to casting, and for the most part, play-by-play is sometimes something you want to avoid, but you also can't not talk about play-by-play, because there's many lines of play that you have to explain or analyze. Sometimes you present even the bad ones just to show that this one's not as optimal as the other one because it gets punished by this and that, and all you've got is 75 seconds to shove all that info while bantering with people. It's you have to find proper pacing, and I think that's something I need to work on maybe in the future. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a hard thing to do for sure.
It's an art that's being learned, I think, especially in the scene since it's pretty new. But from what you've been able to do so far, what do you think is the most important information to convey in that time? Because like you said, one thing that casters can do is just guess what the players are going to do, basically, and just talk about, maybe he'll make this play or maybe he'll make this play. But what do you find is the most valuable information to be sharing during the turns?
It's tough. I like broad analysis as opposed to play-by-play. But sometimes, when you've talked about the matchup a little bit, it can be a little tougher. What I love to really do right now is put myself in the player's shoes and, what is he playing around? What is he trying to set up? What line of play is he representing? Is he trying to put down a threat just to maybe make the opponent think that he's got something? When you see Dornassus Aspirant fall on turn 5, bumping the guy to 6 mana to threaten a Dr. Boom or an Ancient of Lore, the opponent's just going to have to kill that 2/3. But the guy's sitting on nothing. He doesn't have a 7-drop, and he's just threatening it. And when I see this, that's what I love about Hearthstone, is these moments where people know that representing a threat is just as good as the threat itself.
Interesting, the bluff.
Yeah, it's kind of a bluff, but at the same time, it's not. Because, a bluff would be, you hover over your card and you aim it to face, and it's actually, a Mark of the Wild, and you're well played. Whereas when you play a card and you're representing a threat, it's more or less a bluff because you're still making the play. I don't know.
Yeah,
sure. I think that's you can still top deck the big dude the next turn and play it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that makes Hearthstone so fun for so many people is, like you said, because it's a simple game, people are able to think on those next strategic levels that in something like StarCraft is much harder to keep up with, and even think beyond as Zerglings are killing Marines. Like, Hearthstone very quickly invites people to think on that level of play, on that next turn to the next turn to the next turn. And because it's a more slow-paced game, it allows the casters to get a little more in-depth on that, instead of just like StarCraft, after the first few minutes, it's mostly people yelling.
Yeah. Have you played World of Warcraft, either of you?
Not competitively.
I've played it, yeah.
Okay, because I played a lot of competitive WoW back in the days, Arena, and as much as I love playing Arena, like, watching an Arena tournament is the dullest thing to me, because I understand what's going on, but the guy can't realistically ever keep up with what's happening.
Exactly.
There's like
there's
way.
just too much.
You think StarCraft is fast, man? Like, just try to get 6 people just smashing buttons and try to cast everything that's happening. Like,
No, I know what you mean, because I used to play Arena a lot too, and I tried watching like videos of it because it's the only way to learn. But even then, like, even as a person that would play it and I would know what was happening, it's still hard to follow. It's just too much going on.
Yeah, you have to just look at the guy's cooldowns. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's basically, I learned that's all you're doing in WoW as well. You just stare at your cooldown bar and wait.
Cool. I just had like a couple closing questions for the ATLC topic. Did you have any teams you were personally rooting for? Any players that were your favorites that you wanted to see maybe get to the finish line?
Well, I don't know if anybody knew that, but like the day before, 3 days before the finals started, I actually predicted Nihilum first, C9 second, Value Town third, and Temple Storm fourth. So I had the entirety of the top 4 mapped out.
Wow.
If I had known, I would have bet like $10,000.
Yeah, you should have made some bets, man.
If I had known, but
what made you say that? Like, was it the individual players on the team? Were there anything
I think it's the synergy
specific?
for Nihilum. These guys have been, like, they went through hell to actually get there in the first place. They just had the roughest road. Basically, every single step that could have gone wrong kind of went wrong at some stage, and they still made it to first place overall. And they just seem so determined. Like, their determination was way above any other teams, and the way they communicated and cared for each other, that was also another big thing.
Yeah. Well, you were at the house, so you got to see them personally. Were they very tight together?
I didn't see
very
RDU.
concentrated?
The life coach is kind of like the very nice and friendly uncle, you know, for those guys in the team, for sure. And he was really happy for his teammates, probably more so than himself, honestly, after that win. Cloud9 is all about individual skill, but I'm not sure about team synergy. And Value Town, even though I think Value Town could have come second, and I wouldn't have been surprised.
I think they did a really good job in the tournament,
really
considering that they were not a team before that, no?
Pretty much. But it's still like individual players just trying, like, carrying themselves.
Yeah.
So, remind me of the 3 that were on Cloud9.
Ecop,
Kibler,
Kalento, and Strivecrow for Cloud9.
Okay, yeah, they weren't in any of the ones I was watching. Yeah, that is a lot of raw skill there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm always a fan of Kalento, but for me, just like for my personal pick, it was probably just Bryan Kibler because I like him. So I'm like, what team is he on? Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Go that team. So yeah, I was really excited to see how well.
What about a player? Do you have a personal player that you like?
For Noxious, you mean?
Okay.
Oh man, from ATLC. That's a rough one. I think RDU overall. I don't know. I feel like
you don't like his play.
I like his plays. I like the way he actually defends his plays as well when he makes them. And for a kid his age to actually get, like, he's like 15 or 16, right?
Yeah, he's really young.
He's pretty young.
Definitely the youngest.
He's just really good at the game and he understands it. A little cocky, a little arrogant when you talk to him, but I mean that's kind of what teenage years with success actually do to you.
It's the age, it's the age.
Yeah, you know what it's like. You think you're just kind of the next big shit. So it's
especially if you're already doing that good for yourself.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah. So like he's got that attitude about him, but I don't care. I still think player wise, he's one of the most stubborn and determined players, and he still for some reason is able to take in losses in stride, despite the fact that he's so competitive.
Yeah.
Fun fact: RDU beating Amaz at DreamHack was the first ever competitive match of Hearthstone I watched.
Yeah.
Actually, it was mine too. The first tournament I ever watched was at DreamHack, and I watched that match.
Was that the one with the huge controversy at the end?
The high mom thing.
Yeah. That was that.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's what's remembered from that event.
I remember an awesome game of Hearthstone being played, which happened to have.
Yeah, it was a good game. Well, that concludes it for me. Thank you so much for letting us know all that. It's really awesome that you got to participate in that big event, and I'm sure that you'll be called again. You did a fantastic job over there. I enjoy your casting and what you had to say, all your comments and that sort of thing.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so for my topic, we're going to have a little change of pace here and talk about kind of the meta itself in Hearthstone right now. Specifically, I really wanted to get everyone's opinions of where Control Warrior is right now, because I have not had a lot of time to play Hearthstone in the last couple of weeks, and I know the meta's just been starting to solidify from all the new cards. So with, Varian not quite living up to expectations, at least for us, and Patron Warrior running into new hurdles, what do you all think about where Control Warrior is now and where it's poised to go going forward? Andres, do you have any thoughts on this starting out?
The way I've seen Control Warrior kind of evolved is it's becoming very niche, where it is not the all-around deck that you used to be, where you would just kind of use it for anything in the ladder and that sort of thing. There's a lot of decks right now that kind of challenge it. Especially things like the Secret Paladin and that sort of thing that's becoming popular. But it's still really good against very specific matchups. And I think even during like the tournament and stuff, some of the teams are still bringing it. Although Patron was just so dominant that most people would choose Patron over the Control Warrior. So I feel like he's losing a lot of popularity, yet is still good in very niche situations. That's my opinion about it.
Right. That makes sense. Something that brought this up was I actually am somewhat stealing this topic from Vincent, who wrote in and was showing me a new Control Warrior list he had, which is a little bit more focused on armor than traditional Control Warrior by adding in a Bash and then also adding in Justicar Trueheart.
Bash is an interesting card, especially because it allows you to target people with damage, in the face, which is not common with the Warrior.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a little bit slower. I mean, Ysera's running some is not running some. This one's running Ysera and also Justicar Trueheart. So it's interesting to see Warrior go a little bit more defensive even than it was before. Billy, what are your thoughts on Control Warrior nowadays and the idea of like putting Justicar in and kind of going for an even more kind of long game defensive build?
Well, I haven't had too much time to play over the last few weeks, but I would imagine Control Warrior is not faring too well against most decks right now. I would imagine it's decent against Dragon Priest, though. But I don't know. Like Andre said, I think it fills a specific niche. I miss the days where Control Warrior was rampant, but unfortunately,
I don't.
You don't like Control Warrior?
No.
Oh man, that's really unfortunate to hear because it's still one of my favorite decks out there.
There we go.
Yeah. I really like
here's my thing before we move on, because I want to hear your opinion on Control Warrior. I'm sure you have an interesting one. I think the deck is really solid, and the idea behind it, just like playing this huge legendary guys and just being super tough, hard to kill, is really cool. But in actual reality, when you start playing that game or against that deck, it just turns on into very drawn out games. And at least in the metagame, where it was a ton of Control Warriors like a few months ago, it was just those games were so frustrating, especially if you went to fatigue and then you lost.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. It's just that Warrior isn't quite the way that it used to be. And I mean, of course, if you're queuing up on ladder, I mean, I look at this from a really different perspective, I guess, because I like it in tournament play. Ladder to me has always been a meaningless grind. I don't know how anybody even copes with it on a monthly basis. I think the entire system needs to be reworked or just scrapped entirely. I just don't see the point of it. When the last 25 minutes of the season matter more than like the 3 months leading up to it or whatever.
It's like,
it's the most ridiculous system. I agree that it's good because you always see the same names at the top 10. I mean, we're not going to lie here and pretend like anybody can get there. But the fact that you don't have like an in-game tournament system with lobbies and everything that you can play decks in with a lineup, I think it's a bit of an issue. So when I look at Control Warrior, I look at it more from a tournament play perspective. And in that case, even though it's a little weaker, it's weaker than Patron overall across the entire field. But with Dragon Priest coming back and Patron being as rampant as it is, there's a really good argument to be made for bringing it up. I think it does really well against, it does really well against Dragon Priest. You've got the executes and the weapons that carry you. You can cut a shield block for Justicar Trueheart, so you win the fatigue game every single time if it comes to it. You, however, might want to cut Varian Rin against control because you don't want to draw.
Definitely.
Light Bomb's a problem.
Yep. Yeah, Light Bomb is your worst enemy there.
Exactly. So everything conspires to make you lose the game against Priest if you play the Varian Rin variant, which is better against aggro. I don't know.
Right.
I feel like the deck has so many flex spots now and so many tools to actually tech properly that it's just better than it's ever been, even though relative to other decks it feels weaker.
That's true. Warrior is one of the decks that you can really, really take out and make it feel completely different, or at least be favorable against completely different stuff. It's a cool thing about that deck.
Yeah,
I agree with that. It's stuck around. I mean, it's shown that in just like how persistent it's been. Sometimes it'll drop down a little bit, but you never see people just kind of. It's not abandoned to the same level that Freeze Mage sometimes is, because Freeze Mage is so dang specific. It's hard to tech that.
It feels like Warrior. It's not going anywhere. It's not gonna disappear or anything. It's still very good. It just seems that it's not as powerful as it used to be compared to the decks that are rising to the top right now.
Yeah, maybe not on the ladder. That's possible. I can see it really making a comeback, though. I don't know. I'm thinking the meta's starting to get a little bit more favorable for it.
The other thing that made Control Warrior so nice was when Face Hunter was running Rampant.
right. The thing's like Druid's back now, better than ever.
Yeah.
It's like Control Warrior just gets shat on. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's great against so many things, and I love it as a tech choice if you know who you're up against, right? And it's good on it's not bad on ladder. It's good on ladder. It's just not great. And for nowadays, what you need to do on ladder, and that's always been the case, but more so now with all these crazy power creepage decks that just take wins without you even noticing what happened. Control Warrior is almost too fair. That's pretty much how I feel. But that's
a
true of
really good
Hearthstone.
way to describe Control Warrior.
Yeah, it's like it's telling you what it's going to do. You know what's coming. Like there's no cheat. Everything they do is very straight up. They won't lie to you about their game plan. You know it from turn one.
Yeah, they're not trying to deceive you or anything.
Right.
You know, they're just trying to get you to the end game and then smash you in the face.
Exactly.
And then they play Raging Worgen Charge.
Yeah, like you know there's Alex Grom, like the 1-2 punch. Like you know it's coming. So
Yeah.
or even Ysera or some kind of crazy greedy play. But you know they're going to be greedy. They're not going to suddenly pull like some crazy bouncing blade combo.
Yeah, you're right about that. Even their killing combo, it's a 2-turn thing.
Yeah, they tell you like you're about to die.
So they announce you. Yeah.
Exactly. Can you deal with it? Probably not. Then you're just gonna die.
Yeah, I think that's my new favorite way to describe Control Warrior is whenever I lose, I'll just be like, man, this deck is too fair.
Yeah, it's way too fair.
Yeah, that might explain why I like it so dang much. But yeah, Control Warrior is kind of my first love when it comes to Hearthstone decks. So I'm always keeping my eye on it, and I'm just like, is this going to be playable again? Yeah, I think so.
It is. Yeah,
I think I might try some more of it. The Justicar, I'm happy to see that Justicar is working well.
Justicar is one of those cards that I've been very impressed by, especially in those decks, Priest and Warrior, the ones that you're trying to get to the late game. It's just really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. Is it really being seen in many decks except Warrior currently?
Paladins have been experimenting with it.
Yeah, it works nicely in Paladin as well, because having two dudes in the end game just is so much fuel.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, no other class uses it. There's a priest deck that ECOB built for fun that actually runs Spawn of Shadows with Justicar Trueheart and Ocunize and Zombie Chows. And basically the goal is sort of to run over your opponent. The highest cost card in that deck is 5 with, 6 with Justicar, and then the next one is like 2 Novas, but everything else is 4 and less. Like, you don't see any of that crazy, greedy priest control thing. It's really just Death Lords, Injured Blade Masters, Valen's Chosen, drop the Ocunize on the board, start pinging face, Zombie Chow's traded away for damage, and then you spawn a Shadows. You have like 1 Garrison Commander as a combo tool. So when you have Spawn of Shadows, you get like a lot of uses out of it.
Oh my god!
And when you've got Justicar with the Ocunai and the Garrison Commander, it's like, I'm pinging you in the face for 8. That sounds totally balanced. And it's been a lot of fun, but
that sounds like a fun deck. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to play Justicar anywhere. I mean, it's so weird the way they distributed the power of that card. Like you have Shamans with Summon Totem of your choice. And Paladin would summon 2/1/1s. I'm like, you think that's equivalent? Like, are you serious, Blizzard? Come on, really?
It just seems like the classes that take the most advantage are the classes that can use the hero power to prolong the game, like Warrior,
Right, exactly.
Priest. I was watching Say It A Lot, the streamer, play this deck up to Totem Legend. It was really fun. It was a Priest deck that revolved around a ton of healing, and then on the top end, he had like interchangeable legendaries. He was running Paletriz, he was running Velen or Ysera, and kind of like interchanging them depending on what he wanted to do.
Right.
And he had like what's the name of the card? The 1 cost 5 heal that the priest just got.
Flash heal. You just kill them with
Flash
Velens
heal
at the end. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like a really solid deck. It seemed more resemblant to the older like control priest, but this one just seemed to have a lot more tools and a lot of like closing power. And he was doing really good with the deck. I played with it for a little bit, and he had Justicar in it. Just because with Velen or with Alkanite, that sort of thing, it just works really well. Plus, it keeps you in the game, which is kind of what that deck is trying to do while it sets up for everything.
Yeah. Keeping you in the game, I think, is what that deck does. Because Ekov's version was much more aggressive. Like, it was not even remotely as defensive. So I think overall, Justicar fits in Priest, Warrior, and Pally. And further, like, how did Rogues end up with a 2/2 weapon is beyond me.
Yeah, the Rogue one really...
Man. Like, I don't even... A 3/3. Like, if he could have made a 4/4 weapon, that would have been like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's just... How did the 2/2
Would you even run it, though? Like,
yeah,
even
that's what I'm saying,
like
dude. I could play
4/4.
Assassin's Blade and not be stuck with that crappy 6/3. Like, it's just...
Yeah, Rogues really got this short end with that card, for sure.
It's like nothing. I don't even know. Like, Blizzard has weird... I guess across the classes design. Like, I remember when they printed Hemet, the reason they did is to keep some kind of internally played Beast Hunter in check that was dominating everyone. And I'm like, we haven't seen that crop up. Like, Hemet, like in GVG, did you see a Beast Hunter take over the meta? Apparently they did, and that's the reason King of Beasts is a 2/6 and not a 3/6, and that's why Hemet was printed. And now we have like
Really? Hemet was printed to counter King of Beasts?
No, it was printed to counter some kind of crazy beast deck. That's all I'm saying. Like that's what they said. I'm like, beast deck in GVG.
That would have been hilarious, though.
I wonder if they're worried about... I wonder if, like, Gazrilla was doing crazy
I'm sure it was, because they were
testing.
all playing some weird, funky, clunky decks. And, of course, when you play that janky kind of deck that you put together, Beast might look good. And so you're like, yeah, let's print Hemet, man. We can kill Drizzle Claw. And
and give it subpar stats.
Right. Oh, man. So, yeah, they definitely don't have the same metagame that we do once live hits. So, just the card kind of falls in that trap.
I do like your use of Hemet, though. In one of your decks,
God, it
you
was so
ran
good.
Kinkmaster Overspark with
my God.
Hemet Nessing Ray. So
Ultimate
the idea
combo.
was, if your opponent got the 5/5, you just Hemet Nessing Ray.
That's hilarious.
It's a pretty good use of it. And the interesting thing, too, is like they did the same thing with Justicar and Shaman, because they had this crazy totem deck that was dominating everything. I'm sure they didn't even bother to play Patron against it, because they would have realized very fast... like, it's not imbalanced to give them 2 totems. It would have been okay.
Oh, that was the old Justicar? Give him 2 totems instead of choose your totem?
Yeah, they tested it internally and they said it was OP. But go figure. Like, I haven't seen a Shaman in forever. And when I do, I'm just rolling over him like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I was really excited for Shamans at the beginning of this new X-Pack, but they're not a bad deck, but they're definitely not like a tier 1 deck, right? They lack the tier 1 aspects that maybe like Patron or that Secret Pally have, which is just like really explosive turns where your opponent just can't come back.
According to the Tempo Store Meta Snapshot, they aren't a tier 1 deck or tier 2 deck or tier 3 deck.
They do like tier 4 at this stage, kind of like how
if you know what you're doing, I think you can still do pretty well with that deck. But
here's the exciting thing though, Andres. You know what's in tier 4 now?
What?
Lock and Load Hunter.
Yeah. Yes! Climbing
By
up
the
ranks.
way, Totem Shaman is now among, according to this Tempo Storm meta report that we're all looking at here, Totem Shaman is among the ranks of the mighty Mech Rogue and Malagos Shaman.
Yeah, I think Malleable Shaman is still better than Totem. But I still think like Control Shaman is still much better than Totem. And the funny thing is, like, they got really good cards, right, with Totem Shaman and everything. But the biggest issue they ran into is, again, they're too fair. Like, they don't have that one tool that just breaks the game. Like High Main, that's an unfair card. Freezing
they don't
Trap,
have
that's unfair. Mad Scientist, that's unfair. They have nothing like this. Nothing.
Yeah, and it still feels kind of vulnerable to AoE as well. Like once they wipe your board, you just feel so far behind and so defenseless.
Yeah,
I feel like every weak class in Hearthstone just needs secrets so that they can take advantage of the unfair card, which is Mad Scientist.
Yeah, it feels though like
secrets.
if Totemic Might was some kind of, I don't know, if Totemic Might said your totems have +2 health for the rest of the game, like that would already make Shaman viable. Like just baseline, because they can't just kill your shit.
What if Totemic Might read like summon a totem and give like read the rest of Totemic Might?
Yeah, that would
because
actually
like
make
zero
sense.
mana for a totem isn't bad and it's not good either. So
I mean, if you summon like Manatide and stuff at random, then you'd have to at least price it at 2. But it would finally be viable because you summon a minion and you do something for a card. So I mean, I'd be down with that.
Right.
Like, between that and Tuskar.
At first, I was thinking just like the hero power totems, but you are right. Random summon of totem does count collection.
Yeah, that'd be.
I like
the
what's the name of the Rhino that came up that gives the totems +2 attack?
Thunderbluff Valiant guy.
The Thunderbluff Valiant. I feel like that guy is moving in the right direction because it's kind of like I view it as like the Shaman's Quartermaster, which if you have a board built up, suddenly you have burst, then you can close out the game, or you can do like really favorable trades.
But here's what the Quartermaster does, right? Like Quartermaster says, if you have a board, it's gonna do something now. This guy says, "Play me, then get a board." You're like, yeah, that's not happening. That's just like I can't just hero power. Like the fact that I have to pay 2 mana to enable the effect. Like if it says Battlecry, your totems get +2/+2. I'd be like, yeah, you know that can work, but. I don't know.
No, the thing when we originally reviewed Thunderbluff Valiant, one of the things I mentioned is that I think Draenei Totem Carver and Thunderbluff Valiant should switch. Inspire should be on Totem Carver, not Totem Carver. Totem Carver, and Thunderbluff Valiant should read Battlecry, because those two effects just seem like they seem off to me.
Yeah, they're completely wrong.
I just think like the one thing that they're missing is, for example, Paladin, right? When you wipe their board, they can still go on turn 8 like Monster for Battle, Quartermaster, and then their board is still solid and they're good again. But Shaman doesn't have like that repopulate. Like they have the Tuskar Totemic, which can be nice sometimes, but he's not a totem in itself. So you're really just summoning one totem with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What if they made like an off-brand version of Feral Spirits where it summoned in totem golems instead?
Well, but Tuskar Totemic is kind of that. Like what I like though about like what I expected them to make at some point, and I fully expect to see it in the next 2 or 3 expansions. Just it's gonna happen at some point where it's gonna be something along the lines of, you know, pay 3 mana and summon all your hero power totems. Like just something ridiculous to get a board, because right now it's useless. Like what are you gonna do? Those totems even suck. Like they're even bad. So
yeah, the totems, unless you have like Flame Tongue or something else to complement, like by themselves they don't do much.
Isn't there a similar spell in WoW that like summons all your totems at
you would
once?
think they would have translated that over, right? But you'd be wrong, because apparently that doesn't make sense. Instead, we're going to give you a 3-cost Feral Spirit that overloads you and loses you the game.
That's what the Justicar hero power should be. Summon all of your totems.
I'm done with that. I'm totally done with that. It makes maybe the entire deck a bit too volatile, but I feel like that could be cool.
Like even still, would you even run it though? Because like
I wouldn't, because
that could be a drawback as well, because you're filling up your board every time.
Yeah, also,
Absolutely.
not only are you filling up your board, but the hero power becomes you can't like tap hero power again, because you'll already have the totems on the board, so they won't be able to be summoned. Yeah, so unless they're getting cleared every turn, you can't use your hero power, so you're wasting. I don't know.
Yeah,
it just seems like it won't work out.
It'd give me a lot of longevity. Yeah, in Arena, it'd be good.
Hopefully, Shaman will be viable one day. I still have my hopes up.
Yeah,
never.
We'll see. I think Shaman and Rogue. I was about to say they're the only class that's just getting no love right now.
The thing about Rogue is that they're still viable. Like Oil Rogue is still quite a powerful deck, especially in the right matchup. but
it's
it just
so
hasn't.
old.
It just hasn't changed, so it's not exciting anymore.
Yeah.
It's not even good, right? It's not even good right now. Like that's the problem. Like it's their only archetype, and it's not even good. So
Rogue
sad.
is the only class in the entirety of the game that only has one archetype. Well, I suppose you could argue that mech rogue's a thing, but
Pirate
no.
rogue.
they have a lot of archetypes, but
No.
they've got a lot of garbage archetypes.
Right.
There
So
you
they
go.
only have one playable archetype.
Well, Rogue was
much.
like in a weird limbo a long time ago, where they had Miracle, which was like a combo deck, of course, and
Yes.
the only alternative was Tempo Rogue.
The tempo, the tempo
what
one, which
Tempo-
was pretty good too.
Yeah, but the thing is, what Tempo tried to do is they tried to be aggro control, because there's a huge difference between both. Where when you play aggro control, you control the board with like backstabs, SIs, and everything. That's not even Tempo just yet. And then at some point, you just turn on the aggressive gears and you win. Like in a very short amount of time. That's kind of aggro control. Whereas you play Tempo, you're literally just playing, Defiance Ringleader
Stay ahead of your
into
opponent.
Earthling Farseer, into like a Yeti, into a Belcher, into a 6-drop. So you're always playing on curve. That's what Tempo is. But for a Rogue to really just become viable at all, they have to go for not only playing on curve, but also be able to burst you down. And that's been their biggest issue, because Tinkers wasn't around. And when it came around, it defined the class because there's no alternative. Like, they removed the only other archetype that Rogue could play, and until they get some kind of immunity ability, then control is just out of the question. I don't know.
That's that's a good way of looking at it. Rogue definitely needs some variety. They're kind of stale right now.
Yeah.
And
I
like
would
you
love
said,
Miracle to come back. I know like half of the community disagrees with me, but I would love to see Miracle come back in some way. I love Miracle so much.
I think Miracle was actually good for the game. It's just that
Agreed.
what they did was a really knee-jerk nerf, because they added Flame Cannon and Bomb Lobber and Loatheb and like all those tools that you can just
Yes.
in Trogzor, and you're like, okay, so that's supposed to kill Miracle. Then you read the patch notes, you read the patch notes and they're like, we nerfed Gadgetzan to 6. You're like, oh, so actually the cards you added to counter Miracle Rogue are just irrelevant now.
yeah,
Like,
they didn't give it a chance to settle
the plan,
down.
guys. We're gonna add in a bunch of counter cards to this deck that's super powerful, and then we're gonna nerf the deck.
yeah, and so nobody needs the counter cards, and now you feel like you kind of just wasted an opportunity there.
You have no idea how many times I've uttered this exact same conversation to people.
It's so ridiculous.
I get so upset about this. I got into Hearthstone because of Miracle Rogue, and now it no longer exists.
Yep. It's a sad day.
Oh yeah, I do remember those
Sad
days.
Miracle Rogue. Alrighty. Well, we have one more listener topic. Do you want to go through it real quick, Brian, or are we running out of time?
We will see. Do you have time for that, Noxious, or should we wrap things
No, I'm
up?
good to go. I've got another
All right.
20 minutes on my plate.
Cool. Perfect. That should be more than enough.
All right, this comes to us from listener Rob, who also comes to our game nights every week, pretty much. So shout out to Rob, and also his Hearthstone podcast he just recently started, Velen's Chosen. So people can go ahead and check that out on iTunes or wherever and give him a listen. But he has this question for us. I thought up a topic that I wanted to cover on my own show, but feel I lack more of the upper deck building experience in order to discuss it. So my question is how you can begin to identify your deck's win conditions. Obviously, win conditions can be a combination of cards, singular cards, or simply outlasting your opponent. How do I know what works best for my deck that I'm making to be something that overcomes the strategy and win conditions for all other decks, aka the meta? Also, side note, it's really hard to know what cards to swap for teching and which cards are core to make the deck work. Maybe this plays into the main question. So it's a pretty broad question that seems to just be deck building in general. I'm going to kind of throw this to you, Andres and Noxious, because I think you guys have, and maybe Billy as well. Basically everyone except me, because I've done very little deck building. So, Andres, if you want to start things out here, like, what are your thoughts on how to start coming up with like the core of your deck, and then how to figure out what's techable from that core?
I would say if you're starting to get familiar with the whole deck building and stuff, start with somebody else's core, right? Don't start from scratch. Like take Control Warrior or take like the Priest and like start with that core. Usually like the core cards that you're looking for when you're looking at different deck lists are usually the ones that you see there every time, are usually the cards that you know you want to drop in your every turn. It's hard to like categorize just core cards for like all decks. The one thing that he does mention here is, how do I make a strategy that overcomes all other decks? And I just wanted to do a little quick note in there, and that there's no deck out there that counters all decks.
Yeah,
and that is just plain impossible. And that's the whole point about teching your deck, right? You're making it good against certain things at the expense of making it worse against other things. And it's a choice that you make based on what you're facing, right? But just know that all tech cards are making your deck weaker in another area. So deciding when to change cards and when to swap in new ones really depends on the decks that you're seeing. Like, pay attention to the games, and especially pay attention to which cards are constantly being dead in your hand. That's usually a good tell. If every time you draw that card, you kind of like get disappointed, and you're like, oh, I don't need this right now. It's not working, and this is happening often. It's a good probably like a good time to like revise the card and maybe pick something that is more relevant for that situation. Like Big Game Hunter is like probably like the most known tech card in Hearthstone. And it's great.
It's almost not even a tech card. Almost.
Yeah, it's almost an included card almost. But anyway, if you're not seeing a lot of like late control or hand lock or that sort of thing, and you're just running into a bunch of like aggro paladin and face hunter, then mid-range hunter, Big Game Hunter becomes quite useless.
Right. So, Noxious, for you, like, how do you go about your deck building? Because you're a big fan of like creating different interesting decks, not necessarily just tweaking the meta that's out there.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really rough question to answer, because to be honest with you, when I look at, say, Handlock, like I think Handlock is the toughest deck to tweak, because so many of the cards are core, right? And like you almost can't remove any of them without feeling like you're making the deck weaker. And so sometimes you look at Handlock and you're like, all right, I want to take a Twilight Drake, and it may be correct in some cases to take out a Twilight Drake. The thing is, because you're removing that card, you're also straying away from your initial game goal. So before you even think about teching a deck, you have to already know what the purpose is. And if your purpose is to play Handlock and have a drop on turn 4, then maybe you cut the Sludge Belchers and you put in Void Callers, and then you put in Amalgams to make the Void Callers better, and you put in a Doom Guard. So you have to make cuts around, and suddenly Handlock becomes something like
a different deck.
It becomes like a Demon Handlock, which is a totally different thing, because its turn 4 is that much better. But your goal is to figure out ahead of time what you're, not even the techs, because like techs are really niche. Like you have a few flex spots in just about every deck. Like there's no deck with no cards you can cut out, almost, but you have to decide what type of deck you want and what turn you want to capitalize on, and that's your win condition. Like getting a Twilight Drake on turn 4 as Handlock is a win condition. Like it's your game plan. Sure, sometimes it doesn't stick and it dies, but if it sticks, then that's a step towards your win condition, which is overwhelming the opponent with high value minions. So, like teching cards like Harrison Jones, BGH, people say Lotham, which I think is a bit of a mistake to put it in that category. You've got the Ooze, of course, and MC Tech, Kazan Mystic, and all that stuff. Sometimes it's not even worth it. Like teching seems to me like something you do for tournament play. For ladder, it's really hard to justify. Like BGH and Druid is only good because you have no way to kill a Dr. Boom, like 0, if you don't go for BGH. So you're forced to play it there. But in the case of a mage deck, do you really have to play BGH? Aren't you better off with Polymorph that works on something else, like then maybe just a 7+ attack target, where some people will play the BGH because they feel like they died to Dr. Boom or Rag. It doesn't even mean it's the right tech. It's really hard to explain, but like you need to know your deck ahead of time before you even consider it. That's
a really good point to make. Like teching is like the last thing you should be thinking about.
I want to say like it's so irrelevant.
In honesty, like teching is something you do if you really want to like go against something very specific. But in general, like you said, Noxious, it's just better to learn up and down the strategy that your deck is going for. And most of the time, once you learn that strategy, like tech cards sometimes don't even matter because you're playing your strategy. You're already winning the game, sometimes without even regard to countering certain like things that your opponent might be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to loot your deck with tech cards, as I've experienced myself.
It's so bad too, because like you think it's a good idea, because you're like, with Kazan Mystic and MC Tech and BGH and Harrison Jones, I beat everything, and then you're like, oh, what's this mage gonna do to me? Oh man, he doesn't even run secrets. Well, I guess I'm screwed. Or he does, and he still won, and then you have like Harrison Jones, BGH, MC Tech with no target, and you just feel like everything's going to crap.
Yeah, having said that though, if everything you're running against is like warriors and rogues, put in a Harrison Jones and like reap the benefits, obviously. But it has to be like you have to know why you're doing it, and it has to be very purposely done.
Yeah, it's like taking Kazan Mystic against Paladin Secret. Like I've seen people suggest this. I'm like, you don't get it. Like you are stealing a 1-cost card, losing every other matchup. You're not even
playing towards your strategy.
You're not even like killing that 6/6 on the board, which anyway is the biggest issue. It's not even the secrets; it's the fact that its initial stat line is way above average. So you're like, there's no way you're even gonna do anything to that. Even if you play Flare, like they play Mr. Challenger on 6, you play Flare on 6, you have 4 mana to kill a 6/6. Good luck with that. Have fun. It doesn't even work.
On his mark, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That works. Like that's the way to play mid range, is you kinda have to do that.
Yeah.
God, that's sad.
That's true. Well,
so
cool.
what about the idea of like building around win conditions? Like you mentioned that a little bit with the focusing on a turn or something, but like when you're going into making a deck, is there a certain like formula you think around? Do you like look for a couple cards you're building around? Do you look for like are you trying to build around decks that currently exist? Or what's kind of like your process for that, for coming up with a new deck idea?
Well, I mean, you could always build for a combo, right? Like you got this crazy kind of combo. You can go like Arcane Golem, Power Overwhelming, Faceless. Okay, so I need to get these 4 cards together very fast. So the goal is to play as much card draw as I can. Like it's a lot of effort. Like, or Paladin combo, you can do the same thing, or even Priest combo with Inner Fire. Like people say Inner Fire is just a gimmick, but it can hit Legend, Eyes Closed. Like people just don't even try. Like truth is, you could play a Priest deck running stuff like Acolyte of Pain. You can run even Shadow Fiend nowadays if you feel like it, and just dig through your deck as much as you can, and you set up for that 1-turn kill, and they can't stop it. Like so that might be a condition you go for, but if you're playing for tempo, then it's more. I think the toughest decks to build are mid range, because there's literally no win condition. It's just playing on curve and finding the good minions for these slots that are better than established deck lists. I mean, good luck with that. It just feels like it's already been overexplored.
Yeah, at least with the options that Hearthstone has given us, and like the amount of people that play this game, like. The options have been explored pretty much.
Yeah. Especially for mid-range, which is basically just saying like what cards are best in people.
Well, Shredder and anything else. Like you play 2 Shredders and you can literally vomit a bunch of 1-drops. You'll eventually get a win. I'm being a bit facetious, but
that happens.
That's called a Hobgoblin deck. And,
there is, however, going to be one day, and I'm calling it now for the record, a Hobgoblin bolster deck. Like people are laughing about it, but it's going to be
Hobgoblin bolster.
I love that. It combines Billy's least favorite card and his favorite card into one.
It's going to be completely busted. There will be a time. Just give it time.
I'll make that. Yeah, I got Goldshire Footman. Like that's it. But
you see, this is the type of deck that I'm talking about. Like you have Hobgoblin, which works well. You have Bolster, which is cool. They both do the same thing. What if I stack them? So you go all in on the gimmick, and you can maybe get a deck together that just works super well because you have 4 copies of the exact same effect.
Yeah, if you get more cards that work towards that, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to quickly address Rob's question because I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, sure, go for
Which one?
When building a deck, you would need to initially identify your win condition. If you're a mid-range deck, you need to obviously just do mid-range things. If you're a control deck, you're trying to just survive. And then obviously win with your big cards. If you're a combo deck, you win with your combo. And then you need to look at, okay, how can I achieve these things? So if you're a control deck, you probably want to throw in sustain cards like Healbot or Belches, of course. And you just need to look at exactly what your win condition is. And then from that, you need to learn, okay, what are the things that help me achieve that win condition? And similar to what Noxious said, you need to also identify things that you may not initially realize are win conditions. The example that Noxious gave is Twilight Drake on turn 4 is a win condition because it's just a big tempo swing. So, that's something that I struggled with initially when making decks, and I think that's something you should try to perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good, concise
it's once you have that figured out that you can really start seeing truthfully like what is hard countering that strategy, and then that's when we can start considering certain options to counter your counter.
Yeah, it's like nowadays people send me deck lists, and I literally look at it 2 seconds, and I'm like, this, and this needs to get out. Like, they really don't do shit. Like, you'll see people put Sylvanas anywhere. And I'm and I have nothing against the card.
It's a 6-drop,
It's a great equalizer. Yeah, that's a good argument. Let's just play her instead of Sky Golem everywhere. But it's like, it's so weird because she just doesn't fit. Like, they're going for combo OTK or some shit, and like Sylvanas is in there. I'm like, why isn't this a Gnomish Inventor? Like, why isn't this some other card draw? Because
that works towards your plan.
Yeah, exactly. So
you haven't seen the patron decks running Sylvanas? They're great.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, if you see that, right? Wouldn't you have like a heart attack? Be like, wait, that makes no sense.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I'd be kind of glad instead of Thaurissan, just a Sylvanas. Like, oh,
the Sylvanas, the Sylvanas is just a replacement for patron, man. He couldn't afford BlackRock.
You know, what if you could actually win with that because people will play around patron. Just believe it.
Yeah, true. They play like some big taunt, and they're like, "Ha!" And you're like,
it's a trap. You just go chill mod like last turn before, and they're like, "Wait, what happened?" And then you just drop the 8, 9, 10 dragons, and they're like, "Wait, this looks like patron all along."
Oh man. So, Noxious, something I'm curious about is when you're creating these new decks that aren't necessarily in the meta that much.
Yeah, they're crappy for the most part, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. But when you're evaluating decks you're making, like, how do you get a good feel for that? Like, do you play just a ton of games from them? Or, like, how do you get a feel for what a good deck is and what isn't? Do you use a lot of stat tracking?
I don't use stat tracking. I just look at all the turns where you play something. Like, for instance, like, you go up against a druid, right? Like, let's say it's turn 4. Or they're about to hit turn 4. Like, when you make a play on your turn 4... or like it's turn 3 and you have the coin, let's say, you have to think to yourself, okay, so what are their options? So they could go Keeper the Grove, they could go Powder Trader, they could go Squire, they could go Wrath Hero Power, they could double Wrath, they could go Savage Combat and Innervate Hero Power. So you got all these things to keep in mind, and then how many of these turns do I actually win? Like, how many of these scenarios do I actually keep my board? If the answer to that is I rarely do, then my deck is probably shit, because it means I never have a good play on turn 4. So I need to at least have, for each of those turns, like a 50% chance to get ahead. If I don't, then the deck just falls apart. And you just have to consider all the plays with each class, and I think you'll learn to do that very fast once you get the hang of it.
So consider all the potential hands you could have in addition to all the potential hands.
Exactly. Like all the crap that exists, like what do you do against a specific play?
Yeah, that's a good point. I definitely started doing the, think about what your opponent has kind of thing for every turn and what you could be doing. But something I probably don't do enough is just think, like, what if I had an alternate hand here? How would that differ my play?
What if this crap was another card?
Exactly. If only I had Sylvanas.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
On turn 2, it'd be great. Innervate Sylvanas.
That sounds balanced. Hoot, motherfucker.
Exactly. So, quick side question here, Noxious. What weird gimmick deck have you made that you're most proud of?
I think OTK Priest is probably the coolest one, with like Gadgetzan Auctioneers and Shadow Fiends.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
And like Inner Fire kind of thing.
No, you don't even need. It's really just the Flash Heal gimmick. Push to the extreme, but yeah, it's kind of cool.
Like a Prophet Velen in there and stuff.
Exactly. Well, you don't need Velen, just the Alchanize with Zombie Chows and like Flash Heals. You can usually with Mind Blast, you can usually get.
So you kind of just want to draw them all in at the same time and do a huge burst. Oh, interesting.
You play Velen though. You have to play Velen. You have to play Velen. You have to play Emperor. You could play Malygos as well.
Does Velen have to stay on the board for a turn?
Emperor, if he dies, I mean, Shadow Fiend and Emperor do the same thing. The thing is, once you have Shadow Fiend on board, you just draw 7 cards and get 7 coins, basically. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
I totally forgot about that card.
Yeah, it's crap, but it works in that one deck.
Yeah.
It's like
For that sort of use, it's kind of cool because you're just trying to scan your cards so you can use them all.
Pretty much.
Nice. It actually makes you realize Priest doesn't have any like immediate card draw, does it? Like, I mean, it has like effects, but it doesn't have a card that can play like Arcane Intellect.
They've got Power Shield.
Thought Steal.
Yeah, Power Shield is good.
Yeah, that's different though, because that's not going to draw you into your combo.
Yeah.
The card draw that you're looking for in that type of deck is a card that's getting you deeper into your deck. So
yeah,
Thought Steal doesn't
only
really apply.
only Circle. I mean, you have the huge combos with the Cleric and Circle of Healing.
For sure. Right. There's no like Arcane Intellect equivalent, which would be pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Like, land hands, especially with the Shadow Fiend ability. You could just plop that down and then draw a bunch
Yeah,
immediately.
Gadget Sun is really
That'd be
clutch,
pretty
though. Like, Gadget Sun
There
and
you go.
Acolyte of Pain
Yeah.
are just super sick. Because you play Wild Pyro,
Yeah.
right? So, you, like, Acolyte becomes even better in that case. I don't know. It's something to consider.
Acolyte and Wildfire are a good combination. I was using it in that Lock and Load Hunter I was trying out, and it works well.
It's so insane, yeah.
One day, Andres, we're going to have an episode where we don't bring up Lock and Load Hunter. But it's
I
gonna
love
be a
the
while
deck,
from
man. I
now.
wish it was good. That's my biggest disappointment with...
Lock and
Yeah.
Load?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you expect that card to be good, Noxious?
I expected it to maybe spawn a new archetype, but we're missing a lot of really cheap spells for hunters that aren't gimmicks, like Arcane Shot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It technically spawned a new archetype, which is just not a good archetype.
I'm not even sure it,
It
did,
can do
dude. Like,
it can do things,
Control
and
Hunter,
depending on
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's just I don't know. It's not as consistent as you would want it to be, and it just is lacking a few tools.
Yeah, I mean, a card that reads when you cast a spell at a random hunter card, that doesn't sound consistent,
Although
honestly.
the inconsistency is not even coming from the Lock and Load. The Lock and Load is just a nice like refill mechanic and can put you ahead. It's more of the power to stay in the game without having to combine a bunch of cards, right? Because especially with
card efficiency is rough in that deck.
yeah, especially with like Hunter, you don't have like an Arcane Intellect or stuff like that can refill your hand really easily. So you have to do crazy things like Unleash and what's the Cult Master or like Pyromancer Acolyte to like keep fueling your thing, and it's just. It takes setup to do a thing, and it's not impossible, but it just makes it harder, right? Than other decks that are just like, oh, I'm just gonna draw cards.
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel like it's just a bad, like, since they nerfed Buzzard, I wish they just made Buzzard back to what it was initially in Alpha, where it was whenever you play a beast, draw a card, so you don't have this Unleash shenanigan, and it's still playable at 2 mana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's retarded that they actually, like, didn't just make it whenever you play instead of summon. Like, that fixes everything.
Yeah,
I don't even know what they thought.
I didn't even know that was there.
I don't know. I feel like that ruined some of the beauty of Buzzard. Like being able to play it with the Snake Trap up or unleashing the Hounds is kind of.
But
cool.
at least
it
it
sucks that it's at 5 mana, but
yeah, it would have just been like such a drastic measure, right? Like at least you could still do the Buzzard in some situations, but right now Buzzard is just unplayable in every
I
situation.
think he's more playable now underneath that circumstance than he is if it read play. Because if it read play, you're only going to draw 1, maybe 2 cards off of
what
it.
if I draw, what if I actually draw, 1 card or 2 cards? I mean, the problem of Beast Hunter is that they have Cult Pet for card draw, and like the fact that they made Cult Pet is basically them saying, "Oh, Beast Hunter doesn't have card draw." Oh, I wonder why that is, like, maybe that's because you made Buzzard cost 5. If you just made it 2 with play, you'd have exactly the same thing. Temple play on 2 that doesn't maybe get challenged, and suddenly you can race ahead. Maybe you get a turn 2 coin, Stone Tusk, Hunter's Mark. Like, I don't care what you do, but it could
Web
be
Spinner.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They really just killed the card. They completely ruined it.
It's insane that they...
I think maybe you should do one of your fun tech videos on a starving buzzard and try it out with snake traps and unleash the hounds.
No.
I feel like and bring Hunter a little bit slower, obviously.
Acid Maw, man. Acid Maw is the dream with Unleash the Hounds.
Acid
I don't know
Unleash.
about that, but I want to send you a list later on. I want to know what you think of it.
Yeah.
It's very similar to what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I think you'll find it if you were to give it a go. You just try it, maybe tweak it a bit.
I mean, if I play,
I feel like you'll have more confidence in the buzzard.
Yeah, if I play Buzzard, I guess I could play Acid Maw as well. I mean, might as well at that stage. Just like
You just might as well throw it in there.
yeah, you play.
Might as well throw it.
Stones and
his
Gargoyle,
name?
man. Let's do it. Just
Fill out the curve. All right, Rob. Hopefully somewhere in there we answered your question.
Oh, yeah, that was-
basically don't build crazy
We're-
decks.
Yeah, exactly. What are we doing, Rob? Come on, get with the program. But yeah, feel free to send up some follow-up emails or whatever. And if anyone else wants to email us, you can do so at hearthaholics@gmail.com, which brings us to the end of the show here. People can find us pretty much anywhere. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher for all you Android users, and you can just look up Hearthaholics and we'll be there. Also Twitter. Also, we are part of the Whales Are Whales network, so head over to whalesareWhales.com. That is Whales, A-R-E, Whales.com to find other awesome shows like this with other awesome people like us. And if you want to talk to us over the internet and play some Hearthstone, we run game nights for the Angry Chicken. So just go over to the Angry Chicken subreddit, which is /TAC podcast, and you'll find posts there by me and Andres advertising game nights we do on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. Central Daily Time and on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Daily Time. Those have been a lot of... Andres, have you been enjoying those so far now that you're hosting the Monday ones?
They've been pretty good. The turnout has been bigger than I thought it was initially going to be. Last call, we almost had to separate into two different ones. I think the upcoming one, I'm probably going to do that. And it's been nice. Just it's a little more competitive. We've been playing ladder decks compared to like the Wednesday ones, which is more like funsies with the tavern brawls and stuff. Yeah. Some really good players have started to show up. And some really exciting games. A lot of things to learn in that hangout.
Yeah, it's definitely the more educational and informational one of the two. It's kind of nice that Tavern Brawl is closed for a bit, so you guys can focus on actually improving on the game while we focus on yelling about what came out of Unstable Portals.
Well, it's nice having both, right? One is just like you're carefree, let's just enjoy yourselves with Hearthstone, and the other one's like more like, okay, let's learn and let's see other good players play decks.
Basically, in one of the two, you can play Lock and Load Hunter.
Oh man, here we go.
I mean, you can still play. You can still play it. Lock and Load Hunter is not that bad, Bryan.
Okay, we'll go with that. All right, so let's go ahead and plug our work now. We'll start with a guest here, Noxious. Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh man, Noxious Hearthstone for YouTube, COL_Noxious for Twitter, and Twitch.tv. I think it's Noxious_HS for Twitch. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. Anything in particular you're excited about doing that's coming up, or are you just unwinding after ATLC?
I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff. There's a crazy fireside gathering on Saturday in Montreal that I'm actually partially organizing, and there's going to be like 150 people. I don't even know how we got into this. It was going to be...
Oh, wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a smaller event, and then I guess... It ended up being booked, and we opened up like a second room. I don't even know how we're going to pay for this, but we'll manage. Yeah,
that's awesome. You said
that's exciting, though.
It's in like 2 days, man. It's kind of crazy.
Nice. Good. Well, good luck with that. Hopefully, everything goes well.
Yep.
Sounds like a fun time, though.
It does, yeah.
Good luck. It does sound really awesome, but kind of, as someone who finds even our small hangouts sometimes daunting to manage, that sounds kind of insane. So, good luck. Billy, what about you? Where can people find you on the internet?
I still have no clue what's going on with my stuff, but I guess my Twitter is at FanaticBilly. Yeah, I guess that's it. I still have no clue what's going on with the YouTube stuff. I'll fill people in later.
Gotcha. Andres?
People can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find all the music that I do, including the intro music to the podcast, over in my website, massevemusic.com. MASSEVE music. Check it out.
All right, and for me, you can find me on Twitter at Lord Meldor. That is LORDMELDORR. And everything I do on the internet that's worth seeing is going to be at Whales Are Whales, which I plugged earlier. So just head over there and find all the different podcasts and stuff that I'm a part of. Yeah, that does it for me. All right, so we're going to close things out here with our lovely segment, Flavor of the Week, wherein I read flavor text and you guys have to guess what card it's from. I'm excited about this one just because I like the flavor text. I'm curious if you guys
I know them all. You're all screwed.
Oh, no. Yeah. We got a pro. We got a pro in here.
To buzz in and just say, these chumps don't know what they're talking about. All right, so we've got... He gets a discount on the tournament entry fee because he is his own horse.
Knight of the Wild.
Yeah.
You
guys need to step your
He
flavor
didn't
text
doubt
game
it.
up.
Wow, no blinking there.
Yeah, I was like, do I have to buzz?
Just go for it. These guys, These guys don't read their flavor text nearly religiously enough.
Wow, how do you keep track of all of that? That's incredible.
Do you like practice them every morning? Do you have like little like
no, not at all.
like
I read them
note
once.
cards or something?
You read them once. That's enough. I honestly
That's a good memory, man.
Even so, all right, everyone. Next week you can expect a much more entertaining format of that, where Andros and Billy don't know what they're talking about. But for this,
That sounds good.
hope you enjoyed someone laying down the law.
Yeah.
Expect random Skype calls coming to you, Noxious, as they're like trying to guess.
Damn, son.
Phone a friend. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Noxious, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Awesome for you to be over here.
Yeah, I agree. Like that was. I talked a lot.